Nag-feedback.
Hello and welcome to Try to Contact. Magandang hapon po sa inyo mga ka-Try Nation. Siguro I think nami-miss nyo ako ngayon, ano? Medyo matagal-tagal tayo nagpahinga. It's been always 2 weeks or more, ano? Kaya welcome po again sa Season 2 ng ating Try to Contact. So excited na po ba kayong malaman kung ano yung ating mga bagong episode ngayon? Well, ako po ay sobrang excited because marami po tayong pag-uusapan today, especially tungkol sa mga antennas, SWR ba yan? And then later on, Sir ZQC will teach us something about the radios, of course. Kaya ihanda nyo po ang inyong mga tissue kasi English na naman po tayo mamaya. Ayan. For the meantime po, meron po tayong special guest for today. At alam niyo naman, syempre, dito sa TriPH Media, nag-collaborate po kami. Kaya I would like to introduce to you yung aming one of the administrator and yung ating pong sabi nga ay si Direk JM. Direk JM, please come in.
Hello po!
Yon! Kamusta ka na ba, Direk?
Ito, parang tagal nating di nagkita.
Yun nga sana sasabihin ko. Grabe, sobrang tagal na. Ayan. So, kamusta ka na ba dyan sa iyong station, Sir JM?
Ayos naman, magandang bato nyo dito sa akin, Sir BB1. And I think marami tayong exciting na mapapag-usapan ngayong hapon dito sa Season 2 premiere ng Try to Contact.
Yes po, definitely. At syempre, kailangan naming malaman yung inputs mo rin dahil ikaw ang aming isa sa mga resource person. At umpisahan na po natin ang ating balitaktakan. At syempre, interviewin kagad natin si Direk JM. So, Direk JM, ikaw ba?
Yes po.
Yun.
Yes po.
O, sige. Ganun talaga eh. Tayo-tayo na lang dito, Ayan. Hello po kay Sir EMQ. Kamusta kayo dyan sa Alpha Base? Ayan.
Yun.
So, ang ating question po, Sir Direk JM, ay tungkol po dun sa inyong, ano ba tawag doon, volunteering work nung nakaraang Taal eruption. Ayan, ano po bang mga challenges nyo noong Taal eruption at need nyo na mag-set up ng radio communication network? Yan.
Ayan. Interestingly, nung Taal kasi, sobrang dami ng areas yung kinailangang i-cover ng mabilisan. So there was a challenge na kapag hindi maganda yung cellular signal, hindi talaga makakontakt yung mga key personnel natin. And very crucial yon, lalo na sa disaster response, kasi kapag hindi matransmit ng tama yung information at hindi rin matransmit ng mabilis, nagkakaroon ng miscommunication at marami yung nalalagay sa alanganin. At during that time, nung pumutok din yung Taal talaga, nakita rin natin na nag-power failure yung maraming lugar, mga cell site na nasira. Kaya talagang affected din talaga ito yung cellular signals during this time. Kaya nga, we felt the need na gumamit ng radios during this time. At pero syempre, bukod doon, disclaimer lang po, lahat ng mga humahawak ng radyo natin noon at lahat na nag-setup ay talagang mga licensed na mga tao. Para hindi lamang tayo basta basta gumagamit, kundi meron talaga tayong permiso na gamitin yon para hindi naman makasama din sa mga volunteers natin na gumagamit ng radyo. Pero naging crucial ito dun sa aming communication, lalo na kapag may pumupunta dun sa baba na mag-check dun sa ground zero.
Yes.
Very important yung radio communication.
Yun. So, ano po bang implementation plan ninyo nung ginawa? I heard na meron kayong itanim yung mga repeater.
Meron po. Ngayon, at this time, yung repeater na yon ay binaba na po namin kasi wala na siyang need. Pero tinaas natin yung isang repeater dito sa may area ng Tagaytay at one point. Merong isang repeater diyan noon, starting January ata, late January onwards hanggang mga bandang April or Mayo. At yun yung naging relay station from Amadeo papunta doon sa ilang mga evacuation points at mga relief sites na itinayo din natin. So sobrang dali ngayon magbato ng messages at ganoon makipag-communicate sa mga maraming tao.
Yun, so doon pala talagang sobrang essential during the disaster yung radio natin.
Yes
Direk?
po. Tama.
So I think kasama ako doon eh.
Oo, kasama ka doon. Umiikot ka din doon, kayo brother, BB1.
Oo. Yun nga, naalala ko si Alpha Babes eh. Nakakatawa. Yun.
So, nakakatuwa din kasi during that time, yung mga radio operators natin, bukod sa license sila, we also had the opportunity to train them on proper radio etiquette.
Yun.
I think na-hit yan nung
Tama.
season 1 ng Try to Contact. Very important kasi
Yun
yung
nga.
radio etiquette kasi para hindi ma-impede din yung transmission ng mga messages. Katulad ngayon,
Yun.
kita ko ngayon si RDY at si Sir James nasa backstage na.
Yun. So, sige, mamaya tatanungin natin sila, no? Pero for the meantime, nabanggit mo yung radio etiquette. Pinag-usapan natin yan nung season 1, ano? Binanggit
Yes,
yan ni Sir EMQ, yung ating main man, ano? So, binanggit niya doon yung ilang mga rules, ano? Basahin ko lang din, ano? International Radio Language in English. Ayan, so syempre kapag nakikipag-communicate tayo, kailangan natin yung English word, ano? Kahit na English Carabao, okay lang. Importante, maintindihan ng ating mga kausap. And then when using two-way radio, you cannot speak and listen at the same time as you can with phone. Syempre, yung PTT, binibitawan din yan para marinig mo naman yung RX. Hindi ka lang puro TX, ano? Hindi ka lang puro transmit. Syempre, kailangan mo rin ang receive. Ayan. Tapos, do not interrupt if you hear other people talking. Ayan. Kaya nga meron yung tinatawag na break. Tapos bitaw ka kagad para marinig nila. And then sabi doon na, do not respond if you aren't sure the call is for you. Siyempre. So wait until you hear your call sign to respond. O yun. So yun yung mga radio etiquette. Tapos sabi doon ay, never transmit sensitive, confidential, financial, or military information. So hindi natin dapat sinasabi doon yung vital sign mo, yung bewang mo, 40, yung mga ganun. Bawal yun. Ano?
So, vital statistics, ha? Bawal po.
Oo, bawal yon. Tapos sabi ron na, perform radio check to ensure your radio is in good working condition. Ayan, so kung meron kang tropa, siya muna yung tawagan mo. Medyo radio check ka dyan. Ano? Siyempre, alamin mo muna kung ano yung ulam nila kaninang tanghali, yung mga ganun. Tapos meron pa dong sinabi na 4 golden rules of radio communication, brother. Direct, sabi dito, yung number 1, yung clarity. Galing talaga. Your voice should be clear. Speak a little slower than normal. Speak in a normal tone. Do not shout. Yung pala yun, no? So, dapat ganun lang. Relax lang tayo makipag-usap. Tapos yung number 2 ay simplicity. Ayan, keep your message simple enough for intended listeners to understand. So, napapakinggan naman nila tayo, no? Ayan. So, yung pangatlo ay, ano ba to? Brevity. Ano? Parang
brevity. Tama.
Be precise and to the point. Ayan. So, pag sinabi mong, break, ano po yung ulam nyo kanina? Adobo. Ayun, ganun lang. Mabilis, ano?
Yan. Tama.
Tapos yung huli ay security. Sabi doon, do not transmit confidential information on radio unless you know the proper security technology in place. Remember, frequencies are shared. You do not have exclusive use of the frequency. So yun po yung 4 golden rules na binanggit ni Sir EMQ doon sa mga last episode. At having said that, Direk, ano ba yung paborito mong episode doon sa season 1 natin?
Naalala ko, ang pinaka-paborito kong episode dun yung yung diniscuss ni EMQ yung pag-apply doon sa para maging licensed amateur radio operator. Iniantay ko pa nga na mag-open ngayon yung examination para sa amateur radio para makakuha din ako ng license doon. Kasi at the moment, RLM yung gamit ko na license para sa radio operation.
Yun. So later on, maganda yan, ano? So may kinalaman doon sa para. Si Sir James o si Sir ZQC ay Class B license siya. So tuturuan niya tayo kung paano maging Class C. Abangan niyo po yan sa ating mga susunod na mga episode. At mamaya, kasama po natin si Sir ZQC. So, yun, Sir Direk, thank you very much po sa iyong wonderful
no problem.
Inputs. Ano? So, huwag ka muna alis. Diyan ka lang. Ano?
Opo,
at ikaw ang aking co-hostess ngayon. Yan. So, meron ka bang gustong mga pasalamatan? Comments ba tayo dyan? Mag-comments muna tayo.
Ito, may comment tayo. Yung ating masugid na taga-subaybay at ating matalik na kaibigan, si Alfa Romeo.
Yon. Yan, Sir JM, ano ba sabi?
Sabi, hello Sir JM and Sir BB1, watching here at Lahoma office. Ingat po tayo, malakas ulan dito.
Yon. Diyan pala, Sir Direk AJM, kamusta ang weather dyan?
Ito medyo makulimlim po. Medyo umuulan na kanina pero patigil-tigil naman siya. Sana hindi masyadong
Ayun, dito sa Silang Cavite, medyo nakapondo pa lang, ano? Hindi pa masyadong umuulan. Pero iba ang umuulan dito.
Ano ang ulan dyan?
Umuulan ng chocolate.
Yo!
Yon.
Baka pwede namang
At saka-
umabot yan dito.
Oo nga, tsaka yung Lena, ano nga yung tawag dun sa produkto mo? Yung pink salmon skin. Yan. So,
Yun.
ipopost po natin yan, Yan, isa din tayo sa mga avid fan ng pink salmon. Anyway, yun. Saan na ba tayo? Nawala na ako sa spill natin. Nakalimutan ko na, yun. Hindi bale, isalang muna natin yung ating dalawang nasa backstage.
Sure.
At si Sir RDY at saka si Sir James ZQZ.
Hello!
Good afternoon, Sir Randy and Sir James or ZQZ. Kamusta po dyan sa inyong lugar?
Yes, good afternoon also. Dito naman po,
Yun.
maayos sa amin, sa Batangas.
Yun.
Good
Yun.
afternoon.
Thank you very much po. Good afternoon, Sir James.
Everyone.
How's the weather in your area?
Rainy, very stormy right now.
There you go. Yeah, it's nice to have you here again in our episode 1 of the season 2. So that's teka muna, pupunasan ko lang yung ilong ko at nag-notes bleed tayo. Yun. So yun. So I think Sir RDY, we will talk about first for Sir RDY. So Sir RDY, ano ba yung mga aabangan natin dito sa ating segment?
Yes, ngayon, may ilang mga tips ano gamitin ng maayos yung mga connectors, yung cables, same time, kung ilagay sa tamang SWR yung antenna para mag-function ng smooth yung operation ng transmission ng signal. Kasi once na yung connectors ay hindi magandang pagkakakonect doon sa dulo ng transmitters, maybe the signal will weak or the signal loss. So, sayang kung na-loss yun, hindi siya magtatransmit ng maayos. Kung hindi rin maayos ang SWR ng isang equipment, yung antenna, pwedeng masira naman yung equipment kasi nagpo-pushing siya pero hindi smooth yung pushing. At the same time, yung cables, kung hindi rin maganda ang pagkakapit ng cables or pag ginamit mong cables hindi maganda, pwede rin magkaroon ng signal loss. At the same time, yung power, hihina yung radio.
Yun. So sayang lang alam ko brownout ngayon dyan eh. At meron sana tayong pin-repair na something para sa kanila na live. Kaso yun nga, yan ang problema ng live. Nag-brownout.
Blackout.
Oo. Hindi ba sa susunod na mga episode, Sir Randy, ipakita natin sa kanila yung may kinalaman dyan sa SWR at saka yung antenna propagation ba tawag dyan?
Yung propagation test at saka yung signal transmission para hindi magkaroon ng signal loss.
Ayan. So, tsaka ano bang klase ng mga connector yung magaganda? Alam ko, merong Taiwan, may China, may iba-iba, no? May US pa yata o Germany.
May Japan. The brand
may
for
Japan.
the US is Amphenol.
Yun.
Amphenol,
Yun.
number one brand for US.
Yun. So, I think nakaka-relate yan si Sir James. So, Sir RDY, meron pa ba tayong malalaman?
Yes, sir. In this season, ibang kategorya naman. Kung sa side natin, technical, ipakita naman natin kung paano mag-repair, mag-troubleshoot ng isang circuit boards. At the same time, paano makita yung specific na problema ng isang equipments, kung may sira man yun. Tapos ay kung paano ito i-maintain na hindi siya magkakameron ng mga corrosion, let's say, ng mga clog doon sa mga connectors natin. Kasi mahalagang faktor ng transmission ng connectors. Kapag hindi ayos yan, para sa tubig, maraming leak.
Yun. Ayos pala, no? So, napaka-essential pala ng connector, Siyempre, hindi lang talaga yung klase. Kailangan din yung ganda. Ano ba tawag doon, Kung anong klase, anong ganda, saan ba made yan, Hindi basta-basta connector, okay na. Kasi parang connector din ng battery yan, di ba? Pag hindi magandang klase, nagko-corrode din siya. So, ganun din pala yung connector ng radio, no?
Tama po.
Tama.
Yun. So, meron pa ba kaming aabangan o yan muna for the meantime, Sir RDY?
For the meantime, yan muna yung ating i-prepared para yung mga taga-subaybay natin next week, makita nila kung paano yun ginagawa at kung paano yun nagiging effective. At para minsan makaisip na natin, connector lang yan eh. No. Connector is a part ng transmission. Kaya part yan ng cable. Yung cable ang ginagamit sa transmission para makakuha siya ng 100% quality at saka yung efficiency ng kanyang transmission.
Matindi. Hirap.
Malupit, Sir Direct JM. Malupit pala itong si Sir RDY, no?
Malupit,
Talaga namang
malupit.
marami
Marami
tayong
sa kanya. Sir BB1,
Yes.
may bisita
Yes
tayo. May bisita.
Meron ba?
Oh.
Oh, sino?
Matutuwa ka dito. Tawagin mo.
Sige.
The main man.
Sige.
The main
Oh.
man.
Really?
Yes. Join lang siya saglit
Sige.
sa atin. Sige po.
Sige. Teka lang, sige po. Nagbabagang balita, news report po. Meron po tayong bagong, hindi po bago, kundi naimbitahan. At sige, Sir JM, pasok natin si Sir EMQ.
Ayun, no? Hira,
Oh, wow! Grabe, Sir EMQ, kamusta ka na dyan?
Good afternoon. Magandang hapon po, mga katry. Good afternoon,
Good afternoon po, Sir EMQ.
RTY. Pasensya na, medyo naka-duty lang po ako ngayon. Kaya, tawagan ko kayo mamaya sa over the... Pero,
Yun.
siyempre, gusto ko lang batiin po. I would like to say hi din po. Congratulations po sa season 2 ni BB1 ni Bakaser. Talagang ibang klase talaga.
Ikaw to, Sir.
Yung ating radio network po. Ha? Oo. Pero hindi kasi pasensya na kayo kasi kaya po hindi ako pwedeng mag-join ng matagal kasi may ongoing lang kaming meeting ngayon.
Uy!
So try to...
Uy! Hello, Sir David! Nako, yan ang sinasabi ko.
Sa mga sundito, bubuhos mo, bubuhos ang malakas ulan. Ayan ha. At least, wala kang
Sabi
masabi
kayo.
P1 ha.
Iba talaga yan. Iba.
Tapos, sandali pa. Official intro ng Crank PH. Sandali lang. Ayan po mga
Sige.
katry. Yan lamang po pagkagabangan ng mga pinakabagong tourism and technology na mga palabas dito sa natin.
Grabe, what a surprise! Matindi!
So, for all of us here, we would like to congratulate you, Sir BB1, Direct JM, James, thank you so much. RDY, maraming salamat sa continuous na support po ninyo. In the meantime po, I have to go back to duty. This is EMQ po, signing out.
Okay, so thank you very
Salamat
much.
po.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much po, Sir
Thank you.
EMQ. Maraming salamat po sa Pau de Oro. Brother, direct, nakita mo ba yung Pau de Oro doon?
Okay, yun na nakita ko eh.
Baka naman matikman natin yan. No? Yan, Sir Dave Oro. Baka naman. Sir RDY, nakita mo ba yung Pau de Oro?
Yes. Oh, you'll never know unless you try.
Yeah, Sir James, do you know the Siopaw toasted?
Do I know what? I'm sorry.
The toasted Siopaw by Sir David Oro? I think you don't know. Okay. I will ask Sir David Oro to send some.
Okay.
Yes, so that we can try his Pau de Oro. Okay, so thank you so much po kay Sir EMQ. Na-surprise talaga kami. Ganun din naman kay Sir David Oro. At yung ating isa pang partner, si partner na Rome. Ayan, salamat po. Ingat po kayo dyan sa kung nasaan man po kayong lupalop. Ano? Ayan, so it's nice to have you here sa ating segment ng Try to Contact. Anyway, Sir JM, interview naman natin si Sir James.
Sure.
I think, Sir James, how are you doing today, sir?
We're doing okay, doing all right, despite this gloomy weather. We're
Yeah, I
trekking
know it's
along.
yeah, okay. So what can we learn about radios for today, brother?
Well, Randy certainly did a good job here on explaining some connections and I guess touching on SWR. And I'm just going to just come behind him just a little bit here because SWR, standing wave ratio, is something very important to the amateur radio operator. And
Yes.
the SWR, this term here, is used to measure how well the transmitter power signal emitted from a transmitter radio is traveling through the antenna system into the atmosphere. Now, checking and setting the antenna is critical to overall performance. And a lot of ham radio operators, the more technical guys, prefer to use voltage standing wave ratio, SWR. But the best way to easily understand this is by example. So in your typical ham radio station setup, particularly HF and also VHF, a transmitter is connected to the feed line, and which is also connected to the antenna. Now, when you key the transmitter, it develops a radio frequency voltage on the transmission line. Now, the transmission line, as we say, the voltage travels down the feed line to the antenna at the other end, and that's called the forward wave. And of course, anything that is reflected back from the transmitter is called the reverse wave or reverse direction. So let's take a look here at our chart for a second.
Wow.
And
You set it up, huh?
Yeah.
Nice.
And of course, our cat wants to interject too. Naturally, perfect timing. Anyway,
Yes.
so
Very
we
nice.
have our transmitter, and of course, we have the coax. We have a standard SWR meter, antenna tuner. Some persons just have the SWR meter, and it goes to, usually on average 50 feet of coax before it reaches the antenna. This represents your typical dipole. I'm sure you love the wonderful artwork here, but we get the point, which is normally what we call 50 ohms impedance. We're not going to get into that now. Just think of impedance as a complex resistance, more or less.
Yes.
It's really a sum of what we saw inductive, capacitive reactance, and resistance. But for just simple terms, we just call it that. Now, what happens is that when you transmit, let's say you do 100 watts. When you transmit on a perfect system, almost 100% of your power is going to go to the antenna. But if there's an impedance mismatch between the coax and the antenna, then what happens is it's only a certain percentage of the power that goes direct to the antenna. So we have SWR meters, and as you say, SWR, standing wave ratio, is a ratio of the forward power versus the reflected power. So if you have something that's 1.5 to 1, 20% voltage is being reflected back to the transmitter, or 4% of the power. If you have a 2-to-1 ratio, 33% voltage or 11% of the power is being reflected back to the transmitter. If you have 3-to-1, 50% of voltage or 25% of the power is coming back to the transmitter. And the goal too, ultimately, is to have the maximum power out. And again, for systems, it's very complex. A lot of times this is solved by putting a transformer here, a matching transformer. Let's say this is roughly. Let's say this is 300 ohms and 50. So it would be something like what, 4 to 1 for that. So, and then sometimes this is a perfectly fed system, half wave, but sometimes what happens is, wow, yeah, this is supposed to be
It's
a
okay.
racer, but sometimes the antenna is fed here. So we have a number of scenarios here. So
Yeah.
what we do to demonstrate this quickly is we're come on over and let's see if we can uh, get this shot here.
Mhm.
Okay, so we get this shot, and now we have our transmitter. I think I'm set for. I think I'm set for 25 watts. Yeah. So just for this here. So when I key the transmitter, I get 25 watts out. My antenna, I cut my antennas for maximum power residence. So we're getting to that. But just for a demonstration here, if you look over, and I think we can't get the camera any closer. If you look
It's
over,
okay.
you see my SWR is almost past 3 to 1. That means 50% of the power of that 25 watts is being reflected. How we solve that problem here, and not really, I'll get into that, is we come over here to this antenna tuner, and then we tune this down. And in actuality, what's going on is you want as minimum as possible power being reflected to your transmitter. And what the antenna tuner does is it makes sure that the antenna sees a 1-to-1 ratio. As right now, as you see, I just tuned. So that's really the purpose of the antenna tuner, because on the other side, it's still 3 to 1. It's still 50% of the power being reflected. But what this does, it protects your transmitter here. Now we're getting to future episodes a little bit more in depth, but this is a old style manual SWR
SW.
antenna tuner. Today, what we have is most of the transmitters have automatic antenna tuners. So when you hit them, now this is already tuned, it tune the SWR down. But the main thing here is that the purpose of the antenna tuner is so that the transmitter can see 1-to-1. It protects the transmitter, and all this power that could be reflected back can damage the
receiver.
transmitter. Although in today's world, there's a lot of protection circuits, but you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt. So that's some of the basics, very basic,
Nice.
of the SWR and how that works, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's an important concept. Now, what has happened with me in the past is that I have turned on my transmitter, and then the SWR was in infinity, and that told me that I have an open or short in the antenna system. So right away, it's a good indicator, overall, a basic indicator of what your system is doing, how your antenna system transmitter is doing. And
Wow.
that's it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sir ZQZ. That's a wonderful explanation on how to use the SWR and how to protect our transmitter. And I think Sir Randy had a lot of inputs also. So Sir Randy, do you have something to ask to Sir James?
Yes, sir. Particular, the very most information that you're talking later with regard to the power loss. That's a very big information about power loss because, for example, the equipment you expected the 100% function. So why it is function is only 25%. So if the user of that particular equipment is not very familiar with regard to the information that Sir CQC was already explained, so you will be disappointed. Why that equipment is functioning only from, let's say, from one point, it's around 50 kilometers only, while the other is transmitting at around 120 kilometers. So that's a very much information that Sir CQC will already inform to us. That's why, as I've said before, connector is very important in transmitting the signal, because if the connectors will be lost connection, or there's some
Interference.
yes, the interference may occur. That's why the transmission is either you have a 100 watts, it may be only 30 watts only. You're transmitting only 30 watts. There's always power loss, around 70 watts power loss. That's a very,
Yes.
very important. So as the transmitting power must be up to the antenna.
Yun.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yon, thank you very much, Sir RDY, for
I
that.
just want
Yes,
to
Sir
add,
James. Yes, go ahead. Yes, yes.
thanks, man. That's very valuable right there. So a lot of persons have no idea. Sometime the newer have how much power is being reflected back from the transmitter. So as Randy said, that makes a difference
Yes.
on your signal, and really the goal is to avoid the use of the antenna tuner and see if you can match the antenna here, just to be able to match it here with the transmission line. And you have other means of, again, a matching transformer and match the impedance. So the idea is, or ideally, to have your antenna cut for that specific frequency, resonant, and an overall efficient system. The antenna tuner really is for antenna systems that are less than ideal. So you're not always in a situation where out in the field, you throw something up where you have the perfect antenna system. But the main thing is to protect your
Transmit.
transmitter. What I have back there
Yes.
is ancient, really. But now most of the transmitters have an automatic antenna tuner, which they do, but they won't tune anything above 3-1, generally speaking. So that's all.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Sir James. So, what are we going to expect for this season, episode 2, Sir James?
Well, what we're going to cover here, and I actually had that up, is we're going to cover a lot of the Class C amateur radio requirements. And that would be, and I wish I had to bring up elements 2, 3, and 4, but more so elements 3 and 4. And that is because 2 is usually a lot of rules and regulations. You can memorize those. But as far as electronic principles, you can memorize questions and answers, but certainly it's best to understand how these basic principles and laws work. And that's the problem with today, is that questions and answers are available to your amateur radio operator, FCC, NTC. You have that, and persons get the book and they can memorize the answers, but then if you ask them to explain what this means, the principle, and then they get to the station, and then a lot of things happen that aren't supposed to happen. So again, is to be able to give everyone a firm, foundation, and so they know what they're doing.
Yes. Okay. So thank you very much for that. So we're so excited to have our license of Class C. And if I remember right, your Class B license, right?
Yes, Class B. Class B. I'm
There you go.
long overdue for Class A, but
Well,
that's
I got the Class A. How about
another
just
day.
JM?
That's the goal, really.
I'm
But,
good with Class C.
So that's it. Thank you very much, Sir James, for having us here. For having you here. Thank you so much for your time and everything.
Thank
Do you
you.
want to say something, or you want to thank someone?
Oh, again, this team here, we're very much we appreciate uh, all your input, and we of course look forward to working together. Certainly on many more episodes. Also, we want to still thank our producer too, executive producer Ralph, for putting this together as well. And hopefully, we'll see some good results for sure.
Okay, so thank you very much again, Sir ZQC. That we invited you here for your time and effort, and for the support of the team. We thank you so much, and giving the entire Tri Nation your wisdom. So thank you so much, Sir James. And Sir RDY, meron ka po bang gustong pasalamatan and everything,
Yun, salamat sa inyong lahat din nandito pa rin tayo sa events. We're starting on season 2. Masaya pa rin kami na sumuporta sa ating palabas at IPH. Yun din, salamat din kina Sir EMQ, si Sir Dave Oro, at si Sir Rome. And then sa inyo, Sir BB1 at sa Direct JM. So, asahan nyo, dito pa rin kami sa RDY Marine na saan susuporta sa pangapalabas sa TriPH at umaasa pa rin sa mga susunod na panahon, mga advocacy, ipagpapatuloy pa rin natin. Salamat.
So maraming salamat po, Sir RDY, sa iyo at sa iyong pamilya, at ngayon po naman sa bumubuo ng RDY Marine ba? RDY Marine? Yes. Yun, thank you so much po, Sir RDY. Yes, ayan. So in terms of radio, kung may kailangan po kayo, kontakin nyo lang po si Sir RDY. Ayan. So thank you so much po sa inyong dalawa for giving us a chance sa inyong mga wisdom. Ngayon, Sir JM, ikaw, ano pa ba ang ating pag-uusapan? Mahaba pa yung oras eh.
Okay. Parang 2 oras lang ba tayo dito? Ano po, meron lang yung gustong... Kasi punasan mo muna yung ilong mo. Tapos, si Ma'am, gusto na natin batiin si Ma'am Rowena Canta.
Siyempre.
Happy Saturday po diyan sa atin. Yes. Ma'am. And ating top of the top fan.
Si Ma'am Joy Robles. Yan. She's watching from Muntinlupa City. Hello po, Ma'am Joy. Kamusta kayo?
Yun. So, nandiyan din yung mga viewers natin. BB1, si Ma'am Hannah Diergos, si Ma'am Rochelle Pascual, si Sir Oscar Endagan, na sinamahan din tayo kanina umaga.
Ako ka. Thank you very much po.
Tsaka si Sir James Leopardas.
Yun. Hello, Sir James.
Yun, oh. Tapos siyempre, si Kapatang Lena, hindi talaga napapatid ang suporta sa'yo.
Siyempre, alam mo naman yan. Nandito lang sa tabi ko yan eh. Dikit-dikit lang yan eh. Yung kabilang pata ko, nandito yan eh.
Yan, oh. Tama. Tapos si Sir Jim Ray Herrero, kamusta po?
Yun, hello po. Hello. At saka yung CB Radio Philippines. Yan. Hello po sa inyo diyan sa group. Yan. Sige, Sir Direk, ano bang Shall we
Shall we? Opo, gusto lang natin na imbitahan sila ulit dun sa ating next na live show dito sa Try to Contact, and BBC Bisita po ako lagi dito, kakasamahin natin si Sir BB1 sa kanyang second season ng Try to Contact. And of course, katulad po ng maraming shows ngayon sa TryPH Media, live is life. Inanahan po namin kayo na suportahan ang aming mga live show bukod sa ating national live show ng TryPH Media. Nandyan po yung iba pang mga show. Pwede nyo na tingnan yung ating updated na schedule sa ating website at sa ating Facebook account.
Yun. So, meron ka bang gustong pasalamatan, Sir JM?
Opo, pasalamatan natin na ng buong team ng Try to Contact. Si Sir Alpha Romeo na masugid na sumusubaybay sa atin. Si Sir Alpha Lima na namimiss na natin sa kanyang mga content. Si Sir EFQ kanina, salamat po sa inyong pagbisita. Ganun kay Sir Dave Oro. Hi ako.
Ay! Hello!
Yan. And si Sir Ruben kanina pagpakita sa atin, pagbisita sa atin dito sa Try to Contact. And salamat din po sa lahat ng support crew natin sa TryPH Media. Of course, nandiyan yung ating mga social media manager, ating mga advocacy, continuity specialist. Yan.
Yun. Wow.
Mga unsung hero po ng TryPH Media. Sila po yung kumukuha sa atin ng bibigay sa atin ng support sa ating mga movement, ating content dito sa TryPH Media. Kamusta po kayo dyan?
Hello. Ayun. So, that's it?
Yes po.
Yun. So, thank you very much, Direct JM. And ito, papasalamatan ko din po bago nating tapusin ang ating first episode ng Season 2. Gusto ko po pasalamatan ang Ralph Consulting, ganoon din ang RDY Marine Radio, at syempre ang JRM Consulting, ang Happy Giving Company sa pagsusupply ng ating meals at equipment. Thank you very much po. Ayan, at syempre, yung personal favorite ko, ang Lahoma. Dahil sa Lahoma, sa ganda ng serbisyo, numero 1. Yeah. So, thank you po, Sir Alpha Romeo. No? Siyempre, ganun din, Sir JM. Pinapasalamatan ko yung aking pamilya. Yan. Napasalamatan mo na ba si Ma'am Bebot tsaka si Ma'am Kaparasong Gisi? Yan.
Pasalamatan natin sila. Lagi silang sumusubaybay sa atin. Mga top fans yan eh.
Siyempre, yan. Salamat po sa inyong suporta. Siyempre, ganun din yung aking butihing asawa, si Banji, So, masyado mahaba, kaya tinawag ko na lang, bago niyang pangalan si Van. Ang apelido niya ay Sot. Ayan. So, si Van Sot. Hello, I love you, Mami. Ayan. At siyempre, hindi naman magiging successful itong ating mga looks at saka mga equipment kung wala si Kapatang Elena. Ayan. So, Kapatang Elena, you always be my kapata. I love you, babes. Ayan. So, binabati ko rin po yung mga kamag-anak natin dyan sa probinsya ng Estados Unidos ng Amerika. Dyan sa California. Kamusta na po kayo dyan? Yung mga kamag-anak ko po dyan. Ganoon din naman yung mga kamag-anak ko dyan sa New York. Ayan, sa Cubao. Kamusta na po kayo dyan? Ayan, ganoon din naman yung mga kamag-anak natin dyan sa Nueva Ecija. Kamusta na kayo, mother, yung aking mga kapatid dyan. Siyempre, yung milk fridge Cabanatuan at saka yung milk fridge sa Bulacan. Ayan. So, hindi ko pa rin natitikman yan eh. Kailangan ko kaya matitikman yan, ano? Ayan. Siyempre, ano pa ba? Siyempre, yung TryPH Media. Ayan, thank you very much po sa mga administration ng TryPH Media. Si Direct JM. Kilala mo yun, Direct? Tapos pinasalamatan mo na rin kanina, pero just to emphasize. At siyempre, sa ating Sir EMQ at kay Engineer Valyari, ang ating Presidente. Ayan.
At siyempre, si El Presidente, Sir Jules, Ma'am Tina, we love you po.
We love you so much. Yes, yan love you po. Nandito lang po kami pagka kailangan nyo ng tagakain. Dito lang po kami. Thank you. Ayan. And then, ganoon din naman yung ating primary sponsor, si Ma'am Annie Fritz. Ayan. Ate, hello. Ganoon din sa kanyang magandang mother, si Ma'am Estelita. At yung kanyang mga angels. Nandiyan si Joy, saka si, pangalan nun? Joanne. Ayan. Tapos, meron din isa. Kung meron tayong Vansot, meron namang isa, si Val Yena. So, si Val Yena, hello. Ayan. At syempre, yung weather lang na family. Ayan. So, yung Panahon family, hello po sa inyo. At syempre, yan, si Rowena Canta, nagpapa-shoutout din sa Tagalog Group, sa Luca in Tuscany Region. Ayan, hello po. Ayun, si Elena nananakot. O, wag na yan. Okay na yan. So, yun po, sir. Yun, Direct JM, thank you very much, ha.
No
Sa
problem po.
susunod
Salamat po ha. Opo, susunod ulit.
So, ayun po. So maraming salamat po again, Tri-Nation. Mahal na mahal po namin kayo. At please remember, mag-ingat po tayo sa COVID ngayon dahilan sa talagang hindi po siya biro. Stay at home as much as possible and wash your hands frequently. And yun, mag-iingat nga tayong lahat. So ito na naman po ang inyong lingkod, si BB1 ng Try to Contact. Over and out.
Yo!